My name is Monika Piczak-Franke. I am a professor of British Culture and Literary Studies and the founder of Medical Humanities Hub at the University of Vienna. One of my fields of expertise are medical humanities and within them what is called planetary health. In my research, I look at the ways in which environment and health are and have always been intertwined. And I do that by inspecting literature, the arts, media, and everyday cultural practices today and in the past. I ask, what is health? How do we practice health and illness? What stories about them do we tell? How do those stories and representations form our reality? And which of them lead to injustice and discrimination? And how do they do that? Together with my team and my students, I also ask whether and what new, different stories and representations can be developed so that the injustice we see today can be counteracted. But you might ask, what does this have to do with environmental pollution? You will find this out if you listen to my talk. Having watched this video, you will know different conceptions and definitions of health, understand what planetary health means, and how it is connected to pollution. You will also recognize the need to include humanities and the arts in the discussions of environmental and health-related issues. I will explore these questions and topics by giving you some examples of my work and the work that I'm doing and the concepts I'm using. So what is health? Obviously, there are many different definitions of health. And in a way, they predetermine the types of questions that we might be asking. The most popular 1940s WHO definition emphasizes the individual by defining health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely as the absence of disease. This definition is idealized and unrealistic, as it accounts neither for the dynamic nature of health, nor chronic illness, nor links individual health to larger systems. In the meantime, as this graph shows, other competing models of how we could understand health have become prevalent. In this context, the concept of planetary health allows us to consider the interconnectedness of human health and the Earth's natural systems, focusing on sustaining the health of both people and the planet amidst environmental changes. Although planetary health as a concept was used by many, it received a boost in 2015 from the Rockefeller Foundation Lancet Commission on Planetary Health. Referencing the Rockefeller-Lancet Commission, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change recognizes that, quote, human health and the health of our planet are inextricably linked, and that of our civilization depends on human health, flourishing natural systems, and the wise stewardship of natural resources, unquote. In other words, the model of planetary health recognizes the health of the planet as a system and sees the non-living elements of the system as equally important as the living ones. Considering this, what questions can we ask as cultural and literary scholars? What can we ask about planetary health in general? We could ask, for instance, how do literary texts, cultural narratives, and everyday practices represent and shape the relationships between humans and the environment? Or, what role do literary and cultural forms play in shaping public understanding of environmental crises like climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution? Or, how can postcolonial and eco-critical perspectives help unpack the links between planetary health, inequality, and historical exploitation of land and people? Or how does the concept of planetary health challenge traditional notions of human agency, subjectivity, and cultural identity? By asking these questions, literary and cultural studies offer critical tools to examine how stories, symbols, and cultural frameworks shape human perceptions and behaviors, and responses to contemporary environmental and health challenges. And thus, they might offer a good foundation for a rethinking of our actions and the stories we tell. By doing so, we can take the first step towards changing our behaviors and envisioning alternative futures, solutions, and ways of living that challenge destructive systems and inspire sustainable practices. Let's come to my last point. What does this have to do with the perception of pollution and my own work? Since I also specialize in Victorian studies, I asked how the 19th century cultural practices and products, for instance, literature and the arts, reflect the early stages of industrialization's significant impact on human health and the environment, offering insights into the origins of the modern planetary crisis. The Victorian era was marked by rapid industrialization, with coal-burning factories and urban expansion leading to unprecedented air pollution visible in phenomena like the London fog. Pollution caused respiratory diseases, cholera outbreaks due to water contamination, and poor sanitation in overcrowded urban areas, highlighting the interplay between environmental degradation and disease. The Victorians began recognizing the consequences of pollution as seen in writings by authors like Charles Dickens and Elizabeth Gaskell, who critiqued industrial impacts on both people and landscapes, thus foreshadowing contemporary environmental and social justice concerns. Victorian pollution was not limited to Britain. The era's colonial extraction of resources and displacement of indigenous populations contributed to global environmental degradation, the legacy of which we still fight today. As John Mackenzie puts it in Environment and Empire, the patterns of mobility set up by imperial rule led to the accompanying journeys of germs and diseases with often disastrous human consequences. Importantly, as critics have acknowledged, the British built a considerable commodity culture around the preservation of wide European health. Tropical outfits, so a variety of objects expertly selected for the journey, were sold with the intention of easing the journey's hardships. This paramount importance of clothing to the preservation of individuals' health in the tropics, and by extension to the health of the empire, points both to the symbolic but also, if not especially, to the material significance of dress in the colonial networks of health and disease that existed in the 19th century. Unfortunately, the fabrics that were specifically produced to screen the middle and upper classes from illness in the tropics were the ones that shrouded the domestic working class with a climate of infection and death. The fabrics that cocooned travelers in warmth and gave them the space to respire and inhale, in the microscopic variants, cocooned and suffocated the organs of textile workers. This danger is poignantly articulated by Bessie Higgins, a character from Elizabeth Gaskell's North and South, who, when asked about the cause of her illness, explains, quote, "I began to work in a carding room soon after, and the fluff got into my lungs and poisoned me. Little bits as fly off through the cotton when they carding it and fill the air till it looks all fine white dust. They say it winds around the lungs and tightens them up. Anyhow, there's many a one as works in a carding room that falls into a waste, coughing and spitting blood because they're just poisoned by the fluff." Unquote. The pollution in the textile factories led to many deaths, but also to the establishment of occupational medicine to protect the workers. As this example shows, studying Victorian pollution, we see early evidence of the interconnectedness between industrial activity, environmental harm, and human health, offering historical lessons for addressing today's challenges. Inspecting literature and culture from the perspective of planetary health allows us to gain valuable insights into the historical roots of current environmental and health crises, while also fostering critical thinking about their relevance to contemporary life. By doing so, we can connect historical inequalities to contemporary debates about climate justice and health disparities. But we can also see literature and the arts as offering ways to process environmental anxieties and also to imagine alternative ways of living in harmony with the planet.